All right. Loot part 2. The lootening or something, whatever. Anyway, expanding on some stuff from this. For reference, in the part 1, the first loot video, it was more about that, or I mentioned I might have 2 topics to broach. That second topic was not even the next video I did on 2 Up and Fighting. It was, it's about like stat jealousy. You know, when one person rolls really good stats and another person rolls real shitty stats. But that's also not what this video is about. It's just more on loot. So, I went over how one campaign kind of did it. I guess I'll go over how another campaign I'm playing in, how that DM tends to do it. And it's a different DM. So, in that game, how would I describe how the loot is in that game? There's definitely caches of stuff you just find. It's just like, there's just some magic items there. They usually make sense for where we are, but we spent the majority of that campaign in fucking Barovia. So there's all sorts of shit everywhere. That game, there is also kind of more accessible magic items for purchase for a variety of reasons. Like, one, now we're at higher levels, so we can just go to places really easy and get and buy stuff with all the money we have. But otherwise, we do tend to get those kind of highly personalized items. For example, well, actually, before I go to the example, one thing that DM has said frequently is that he doesn't like to give out magic items until he feels like the players have earned them in whatever way. And that's, you know, a nebulous concept. It's up to the DM, right? So, you know, but for example, when I came into that campaign, we were level 3, I think. Yeah, I came in at level 3, and the only thing I asked for at the beginning was I wanted a weapon with like a really minor magical property that it could shift between a scythe, which mechanically we use a great axe for that, and I could do a whole video on scythes. Maybe we'll get into that some other time. But it would switch between its scythe form and a quarterstaff form, and that's mostly for like flavor and RP purposes, because the character is not wandering, but he's a traveling executioner. Carrying a scythe around all the time is slightly awkward and also very unnerving. So having the ability to shift it into a quarterstaff for both concealability and for what do you call it? I don't know. Appearances, I guess. You know, those are good things, or useful things. It ended up really not being relevant in Barovia because it's Barovia. But, you know, that is what it is. That truck is crooked. Driving crooked. It's like that. Anyway. So, pretty much, like, basically the first session of that game, we ran into a hag. Fought the hag, and then we recovered this crystal that my character's follower of the Raven Queen. This crystal was, like, brought into Barovia by some other follower of the Raven Queen, and then I found it, or my character found it, and it was like kind of destined for him. So he took it, he put it on the scythe, and now the scythe is it was a +1 great axe, and it did an extra 2d6 necrotic damage. So bam, right away. I guess in that case, it wasn't as much to make my character earn that. It was to bring them in line with the other characters, because at that point, one of the other characters had a flame tongue longsword. So, just bringing my character's damage in line with the other martial characters. Makes sense. So that's one of the other reasons to do that. Bring characters in line, especially if it's a new character. And we're kind of going through that now with the character spotlights, because that's, I've mentioned those several times. That is this game. One of the main things about the character spotlights is to bring the new characters that have joined the campaign a lot closer to the level of, say, my character, who is ridiculous because he's got all these magic items, and like there's feats that he's earned and all sorts of stuff. So he's extremely powerful. Like, for reference, before the spotlight began, my character most likely could have killed the entire party, probably. It wouldn't have been easy, but he possibly could have won that fight, just him, against the 4 other party members. Now? Nah. Because, like, we're about to start the last spotlight, and everybody's gotten cool shit. I only really know what it is for the cleric. What the other 2 characters so far have gotten is a little more secretive, but that's fine. So yeah, there's when characters earn something more personalized, then it makes sense. Or say you move into a new tier of play. You go from level 4 to level 5. You're in a new tier. A session or 2 later, a character might find a really, really good sword. That makes sense. You're moving into a higher difficulty, and while your characters are getting stronger, a few little items to help this along, because maybe the DM wants the danger level to be a little higher, so you got to outfit the characters appropriately. And that's definitely something that happened in the game I talked about in part 1, where, every encounter was a deadly encounter. It was ridiculous. But we also had tons and tons of magic items, just ridiculous amounts of shit. Everybody just had all this crap. Like, I think at one point we were like, does anybody want this? It's attunement. No, I've already got a cloak. Okay, well, I'll just put it in my pocket for now. When characters earn a magic item, that's also subjective. Like, is it when you move into new tiers of play, when you finish certain arcs, when you do certain things, really, like, maybe the characters pull off some really bananas plan that the DM didn't think would work, and oh hell, it worked. Cool. You guys are rewarded with some shit. Maybe not instantaneously, like, oh yeah, you guys brought down that tower. You find some stuff on the road. No, like a session or 2 later, when it makes sense for like a treasure cache to show up. But But another reason is to bring characters in line with each other. And this is something that I've done in my games. Like something I didn't get a chance to give a character in my SCP game. There was a character that was... the character itself, it was an alchemist artificer, which is just not a very good subclass. So I gave them some cool shit to start with, like a little sickle that could like regenerate spell slots, some other things. And then that game went on hiatus, and it's been on hiatus. That one's probably not coming back for a variety of reasons. But one thing I was going to give that character was some kind of item that would let them like recycle spell slots. And it was something like when you... It was like I don't even remember how I did it, but if I'm going to design something like it today, it would be like, okay, when you miss, like, when you use a spell and, like, a creature succeeds on its save or you miss on the attack roll, like, it gets a charge. And when you have a certain amount of charges, you can spend the charges to gain a spell slot. Something like that, you know. Who knows what it would be. Like, maybe, like, there'd be some exchange rate, like, you know, maybe it takes two charges to gain a level 1 slot or something, and missing a level 1 slot just gives you 1 charge. Something like that, you know. And the main reason I did that was because this player couldn't roll for shit. Like, she just couldn't hit anything. Everything's missing all the goddamn time. So, just some way for her character to, like, refund some spell slots a little bit, I think would be fine. In, like, a normal game, well, there are no normal games, but for normal rules, I don't think anything like that should, like, really exist outside of, like, a specific case like that. That wouldn't be a widely available item. It would be just for that character and nobody else could ever get it. Like, and this is that same character that there was one time, like, it was in a boss fight and, like, she couldn't hit shit with her shotgun. Like, her modifiers were fine. They were all good, but she just couldn't hit shit. So after, like, the 4th turn of her not doing anything, it's like, oh, your shotgun blast, like, it goes wide and you shoot a stalactite in the ceiling and it crashes down on the enemy. Roll damage. Something like I did that because, goddamn, man, I want you to roll some damage dice. But in another game, for the first Contraria game that I ran, and for reference, this is a game where almost everything was randomly determined. Like, the characters, like, the players rolled for everything about their characters. And one thing I started doing was I started giving highly personalized magic items out, just because it was cool. And, you know, they weren't like, there wasn't exactly a main quest, but I did give them a thing to do, like a mission for them to go on, but it's not exactly like a main quest type thing. But I started to give them more personalized magic items, like, one of them was a trickery cleric, and I gave her character a cloak that did two things at once. One, it was a gray bag of tricks, so that's fun because bag of tricks is a very potentially powerful item, but I just gave it to her and, like, just go nuts. It'll be fine. I can account for it. It doesn't matter. But the cloak was a bag of tricks. Like, it had pockets in the cloak. And then it also allowed the cleric to do, like, the trickery domain to channel divinity, like, I think as a bonus action or, like, as a reaction. I think, like, yeah, she could do it as a reaction. And then I also as a bonus action, sorry. And then it had its own charges. And you could spend a charge when you get hit to switch places with your duplicate. And the duplicate would get hit, which I don't even think the duplicate could get hit. So you just get out of getting hit in a fun, creative way that makes sense for the character. I gave another character just a really simple, like a great sword that did extra fire damage, and it can light things on fire within 30 feet. Because their god was like this fire god of the sun type thing. So, you know, I just, like, that wasn't super, super crazy. But I was also giving that character lots of dreams about this eldritch sun god, so that was fun. But, then I gave another character who kind of worshipped, like, Charon the boatman. You know, put the coins on the eyes, like they were this assassin that was putting coins on the eyes of anybody they killed. So I gave them what I called the collection gauntlet. And what it did was it allowed you to spend gold to do things like gain advantage on rolls, gain bonuses to rolls, and I put in the description that the price is subject to market forces, which basically, how dire the situation is. Like, if you're gonna use it to do a backflip in front of a crowd of villagers, give me a silver. This is stupid. But if you're using it to gain advantage on like the potential last hit of an important boss fight, ooh, that's 10 gold, please. That kind of thing. I thought that was a really fun creative item for that character. And those are the type of items that I like to create. And I sort of did something similar with the second Contraria party, which is, my main Curse of Strahd game. Now it's Second Coming of the Night Parade game. I ran that game for them too. And I think the second session I gave them some magic items I made up. I gave the drug dealing sorcerer, I gave him an alchemy kit that when you cast a spell, you can use the alchemy kit as a spellcasting focus for sorcerer spells. And when you cast a sorcerer spell using this as a spellcasting focus, you can add a poison or a drug. You can burn it as part of the material components. And whatever effect that poison or drug does, it gets added to the spell, baby. So we got sleep magic missiles, a fireball of purple worm poison. Let's fucking go. It's nuts. But it's super fun. Is it balanced? Probably not. And I know I talk about balance and fine-tuning stuff a lot, but though that particular game is all about nonsense and chaos and just doing funny shit. So I think that type of item made perfect sense. In a normal game, or a long-term game, an item like that could totally exist, but you'd have to tone it down in some way. Add some kind of restrictors, you add certain poisons and you can add up to a certain amount of damage dice, whatever, but melee characters are adding poison to their weapons. If you got purple worm poison, you add it to a weapon, it works. But you add it to why can't you just add it to a spell? Maybe it's a little strong, but again, it'd be something I wouldn't have trouble compensating for. Definitely opens up some weird possibilities, but again, it's fun. Then I gave the Love Cleric a rose with some charming abilities and some other stuff, and the predominant thing is you could spend a charge to do a reaction charm effect when somebody hits you, or you could use it to add some thorn effects to a spell, that kind of thing. Just something in line with the character's flavor, give them some extra capabilities. And then I gave the Barbarian what is basically the boom hammer from Bloodborne. You trigger it, you cock it back, it lights on fire, and it does extra fire damage. And then at whenever you want, as one of your attacks, you can slam it into the ground, and it explodes, damaging you, damaging everybody around you. So I'm a big fan of more personalized items when they make sense to give out. You're not always going to give them out. Maybe you want to give them out, but you're not going to do it until the players get to a certain point in the main quest. Maybe you put them in this one specific dungeon that the players are going to go to. It's important that they go there, so you put those items there. But there's lots of different reasons to do it, and kind of touching back on the concept of the only items you find are the things that would make sense to be there. Something a friend from part 1 something a friend of mine pointed out. Like, most of the items we found would make sense for, like, where we were. It was mostly, it was all Goliaths, and weren't a lot of, like, rangery druid types. They were mostly all, like, soldiers, so, like, fighters and barbarians. So they were mostly, like, fairly standard kind of equipment. Like, there were plenty of magic items, but they were the type, and magic weapons, but they were the type of magic weapons, like I said, that were just like, oh, it's got pluses and does extra this kind of damage. Like, nothing with, like, any kind of, like, ranger-centric features, like, when you cast a ranger spell, you teleport and make a bonus action attack or something. I don't know. Some fucking nonsense. But, they were all kind of standard. They were still strong, but they were more basic, like, less crazy, whatever. Yeah, I guess that's all I got for you today on that topic. If I think of any more relevant things about this topic, maybe there'll be a part 3.